Hello, and welcome to the Weshtern Philosophy Podcast. Two friends with oceans of notions discussing the unseen forces in our lives through the lens of music, mystery, and crack. We have a Patreon at Weshtern Philosophy Pod, don't forget the H. If you're enjoying the show and would like to see it grow, you can join this, or make a once-off donation via Ko-fi.com. Both links are in the show notes below. Today, we are joined by actor Eavan Murphy to speak with us about how we define success and progression in our personal and professional lives under the topic of productivity.
And I do think acting is like healing for society, in that looking at stories or painful situations in our history and giving them attention, and that's already healing, just like acknowledging something, collectively healing the consciousness around that. It's just bringing awareness to society, and people can say, whoa, that happened. What can we learn from that? And it's kind of like a service to it, or a ceremony to it, honouring that story that wasn't spoken about or that was just pushed down. It's just like bringing light to it and honouring it.
Good morning, everyone.
Well.
Good morning, Bart.
Oh.
Good morning, Blarney. And good morning to our best dressed guest. I'm not going to often recommend this, but, most people listen to us on Apple Pod or driving or something. Pull up the YouTube, because today we have actress Eavan Murphy.
Hello. And
definitely the best dressed person we've had on the podcast. Eavan, thank you for being here.
Thank you for that prize.
Is the microphone not covering too much of her? Oh, and I should be talking into the microphone, which is also handy. But no, you can still. They can see it. They can see it.
Yes. Well, yeah. You've put me in a real pickle now. The cameraman versus the audiophile is immediately
yeah, to put a bit more stress on you.
Immediately at war.
All your tech pressures.
Yes, Bart has a walkabout microphone. There's a wild laver mic somewhere in the wilds of North Clare.
Yeah,
so if anybody comes across what is it?
SE Electronics V7. Yeah.
Take note.
We had a bit of a wild gig in Ennis on Saturday night in a tiny pub, dark pub, and it's a lovely place to play, but it's always a bit hectic getting in and out, and I think that must...
Oh, that's where it is.
It must be there, or... Yeah, anyway, I'll call them, but I have a different mic now, so if I sound extra juicy, then you know why that is.
That's it. And so Eavan and Bart, you know each other through the acting world.
Yeah.
And I've been looking forward, I genuinely have been looking forward to this episode for ages, because Bart, me and you do the pod together, we play music together and so on, but like your acting background is something I'm pretty outside of. Like, I've seen you in plays and things like this, and I know how important it is to you. So I am really looking forward to...
You're really looking forward to Eavan going, he's a bit shit, really.
Yeah, let's not talk about
let's not do this on air. But no. The funny thing is, me and Eavan did rehearsals for a play directed by the great and previous guest Joe Hendel, and it was a bit too racy. The play was too racy to be brought out, but it was great, and I really enjoyed rehearsing with you. And I'm looking forward to the day when we will be on the stage together.
Take two, and it actually happens.
Yeah.
It was really fun, and it was great to get to connect with local actors in the countryside, because I think it's easier to get local actors in the city. If I'm in Galway, find other actors, but to have been out here was really nice to actually find a crew to do something with, but that never got done in the end.
No, I think it was connected to the university, and it hit so many trigger issues that the university went, nah.
You were just playing trigger bingo.
Yeah. No, it was very dark. But you played the darkness beautifully, which is always what I think I might have even said it on the podcast sometime. But that was really... I think we were playing a dysfunctional husband and wife, and you were really getting at me. Oh yeah, I think we did talk about it on here, because we were talking about when we were talking about trad and how music allows you to connect with people that you don't really know the background of, and that with acting you have that too, where you can sit down with someone and 20 minutes after you've met them, you're like destroying them emotionally. Well, in a play, obviously not really, but I remember that and being like, that's cool.
Yeah, that's one of the really interesting or cool things about acting is, say now we know each other well, but it's just through the medium of acting that I think with acting you kind of have to, it's only if you connect authentically, you jump over all those hurdles of chit chat and trying to get to know each other.
What do you do? How old are you? Where are you from? And it's just like, here's my soul.
Yeah, and you don't have to fill it up with words. It's just, I think you really have to just listen to each other, and then you're not using words to fill in who I am. You're feeling who I am authentically, and I'm feeling who you are authentically.
Yeah, which is mad because you're doing it usually through being someone else, but you can still feel also who someone is authentically.
I know, and I find that phrase, being someone else, interesting. You know, sometimes you hear actors say, oh, I act because I like to escape who I am, or to be someone else, or to put on a mask or something.
Yeah.
And I just think all those phrases aren't true, because you can never not be yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you're always going to be you, and what it really is just discovering and unlocking different tones of you, and opening up different areas, and maybe you feel more comfortable because you have permission to lean into these areas that you wouldn't have in
100%. I've played a lot of like really angry men, and that was something I was never allowed to do in real life because I'm too big, you know, so you can't. And then in the stage you're suddenly like, and then and it looks big and it looks aggressive, you know, then and so I think you're dead right. I've that being someone else is, I don't like that either. But hey, listen, guys, it's my second language. It's always the excuse I have to use, you know. But so he's so sick of that excuse.
People do say that a lot.
I think it's for me, it always felt more like putting on a different energetic coat. But I actually quite like what you're saying, is that it's nearly like the tone, like you're tweaking the dials on your
EQing your soul.
Yeah, or your ego, maybe. I don't know.
I always found that, like, how I got into acting though was because I was just so interested in discovering all parts of myself. It was like, there's so many parts here, and I didn't come from the side of I want to be an actor. I never had that idea. Actually, when I was younger, I was like, I would never act. Oh my god, like
cringe.
Totally cringe. But that was my own things coming through of just not wanting to be seen and fear of being judged and all that. But so I'm saying then that I came to acting from, I was really obsessed with like discovering your full self and being your full potential and productivity, and like, how do I know all of me? So it kind of kept migrating over to a grounded, solid idea of just know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You told me before that acting is your practice.
Yeah. That's when you hear it, I'm like, yeah, that's what I think too. Yes.
I have that sometimes. That's great. Yeah, you told me that. Okay.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about that, and that it's like it's daily practice, and that because all the components in acting, for me anyway, like the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and that in the way that people like have their meditations practice, or they go to whatever spiritual, religious, whatever practice they have, or their exercise practice. It's a thing you go to every day. It's a way to explore or ground or develop a sense, some part of you. So I see with my acting, it's like every day looking at a different component. It might be a meditative practice. It might be just a presence practice. It might be like a sensory practice and just tuning into all your senses, or a physical practice of, sometimes it's exercise workout, but sometimes it's like using your instrument, your body. How do you move through space? How does your body move through space? Or if you just focus on your feet, how do you move differently? Mm-hmm. So I say that it's a practice, and it's all about awareness and presence, just in some directed in different ways. Sometimes it's through the physical, sometimes it's through the voice, sometimes it's through visualizations and meditations. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How is that the practice of acting to you? Because that to me sounds a lot like just mindfulness and being present in general, and then that bleeds into acting. But I like the fact that you kind of turned it around. You went like, no, it's all acting for me.
Yeah, I
think acting with a small a, or like more like acting in the world, or how?
That I kind of see it as it's not about the acting. It's like all your practices around acting. So it's like, rather than, for example, say if you're in a scene or something and it's about anger, it's not I'm trying to be angry. It's about you getting into the state of being angry, of the state of potentially being triggered by something that will make you angry. So I think it's just all about being, not about trying to act. So that's why my practice is just about being, and being so kind of gymnastic and flexible in your being that you know how to work with your instrument to bring it into a state that you can react, that you can be reactive, or what's the word, like readiness potential, that you're just susceptible to all the stimulus around you, you know, that you can actually be affected by things. Because if you're too closed off, I suppose that's it. I know I'm having a total ramble here.
But that's nice. We're exploring together.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah, all my thoughts are coming out here. I should have had them more clear in my head.
No.
Having your instrument so sensitive that it can react and feel and hear and listen. So that's why I see it as the practice, and that the way you practice your whatever instrument, like your guitar or something, I'm practicing my body instrument, but I see it as body, mind, spirit. It's not just a physical body, you know.
I'm interested in the relationship, or how much of acting is internally focused and how much is externally focused, because you there's all this getting to know yourself as well, but then you need to be able to obviously embody that, but then communicate that, and then react often off somebody else who is also doing the same thing. So the idea you're saying about being open, it sounds like your practice is maybe primarily internal.
I would say, my practice is internal, but then when I'm on set or on stage, then it's external. Well, then it has to be opened up so that it's not just about you. It's not about you at all. You know, it's about how you're reacting to other people. So that's, again, back to the home practice, is practicing my listening and presence. And I also want to say the word practice can sound like disciplined and regimented, but it's not to confuse it with that. It's
when you talk about, I think of like ritual. It's just the thing you do every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would see it as ritualistic, and so that when you are working with someone, your instrument is so open and ready. It's like, you know, when you meet someone, you can feel when someone's open and their energy is open and receiving, or when they're closed off. And I think as an actor, and like in times in life as a person, it's nicer to be open to someone, you know, so someone can feel your energy and they can come into your presence. You feel when someone's closed off, and you're like, oh, dude.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean
to. No, go on.
Something just occurred to me, and then I'll shut up. But I was watching an interview with Harry Borden, who's known for being a celebrity photographer, and he's taken some very iconic shots of British and American celebrities. But he was talking about working with these people, and he was saying that, like, ideally they're very open and collaborative and happy to see you. But he's like, occasionally you get somebody that's really closed off, and he was saying, actually, if you want the best possible portrait photo of them, often it's best to trigger them slightly.
Yeah.
You know, so they gave the example. There's an iconic photo of Winston Churchill. Apparently he refused to take a cigar out of his mouth for the photographer, and the photographer just walked up, plucked the cigar out of his mouth and snapped the photo, and he's like staring daggers into the lens, but it's like the iconic Churchill photo.
Oh yeah.
And just something I'm very interested in is conflict, because I think it is really good to be open, but I think sometimes we need to be closed as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's also so everybody's right to be a bit closed as
Definitely.
well.
And I think that goes back to your practice and knowing your instrument. So it's like you can choose when you're open and closed, but you're not closed, but you're not being dictated by other people or the environment, because it's not safe to be open all the time. But then when you go back to the acting space, you have to be open. You know, like obviously there's the scene and the story, but in general, like you actually would notice when you watch some actors when somebody draws you in, and it's not that the whole character is about being open. They could be a closed character, but the actor is open.
Sure.
So that you can read the story and learn.
I know what you mean, because I think sometimes what can happen is if an actor is closed off, but performing really... for some reason, Tom Hardy is coming into my head, but I don't even know if that's fair. But I've heard him stalking around sets like some kind of fucking tiger.
Yeah.
And then being really intense on camera. And maybe that could even work and look good, but I think it turns down the lights on all the other people, probably. I think I know what you mean with that openness. It's kind of a meta openness. Like, even if you're... Oh God, this is getting very poncy. But anyway, but like, even if you're, and we're talking about acting, who would have thought? But darlings,
Doesn't
but
Lean into it, Bart.
yeah, we're gonna go. We're just fucking my friend here. We're gonna go, and Anthony's just gonna puke into his coffee. It's fine.
My moss boss.
But I think there's a future sponsor of the podcast. Come on to us, Moss Boss. No, but I think there's something about, like, you can play a closed character, but you still have to be open and receptive to the other people's influence. Because if you're just doing your own thing and not really interacting, I think that's probably the openness.
Yeah, like you mentioned the frequency there a while ago.
Yeah.
Like turning the dial. Your dial has to be open, like so that your message is still going out. Because you can talk all about the acting, but the purpose of the acting then is to tell the story.
Yeah.
You know, where we are still like tools in the storytelling. And sometimes you do see actors, they might have done a really good performance or like emotional gymnastics.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really communicating the story. Or sometimes you notice that somebody was very upset or there was this big emotional thing, but you're not moved by it as an audience member. And I think often that can be because they weren't connected to the story. They were maybe indulging in their own issues.
Well, you hear that actors say that quite often, that they're like, well, I really nailed it tonight. And then everyone hated it.
Yeah.
And whereas a lot of times people are like, oh, fuck, this was horrible. And people really enjoyed it. And I think that goes for a lot of things. We've had that on the podcast as well, where we've had, certain episodes where maybe I was thinking about myself like, oh God, I really showed something that I really am not too pleased with. I was a bit annoyed or something, and then people would go, oh, that really helped me because that was quite real. But it's uncomfortable, and there's something interesting with it there as well, that you're kind of looking for that discomfort, or well, are you? But you're allowing it anyway.
There is an element of discomfort. Like when I first started acting, because I didn't start acting until early mid-20s, but the first time I was like, oh, whoa, this is so uncomfortable, but I'm meant to be here. I want to be here. And just the learning in the discomfort. And things that are uncomfortable are often, let's say, right isn't the right word, but expansive or expanding.
Expansive is exactly the right word. And I think it's interesting, and if you don't want me to share this, then we will cut it out. But I think it's interesting that we also both went to Breed O'Donoghue's workshop, and Breed has been on here. Actually, I think the most quoted guest for practical advice, which I always find so funny, because you would think, really, we had a psychic on, and that's the most practical. But everyone is like, yes, because she speaks to something that we all experience as sensitive people, but we didn't have any tools for it.
Yeah.
And it really makes sense for me that we both went to that, because it's another way about opening up, closing off, and twiddling the dials in a way.
I would often describe my approach to acting is spiritual or energetic, because it's just a dialogue between energies when you're acting with people. You know, and that's why I go back to it's a practice, because it's about how can I feel your energy and how can I feel my energy, and again I say it's a practice because it's my life. Yeah. That sounds again very dramatic. It's my life's work, but it's a way to go about life. Like I don't just see it as this is what I have to do for acting. Like no, this is helpful for every day. Like how do you listen to people? How do you respond to them? How can you tune into? I do think it's like the psychic work. It's like tuning into their frequency, and sometimes they might say something, but you can feel something totally different from them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I love that. The more you talk about acting, it sounds like there's a real relationship between acting and your own authenticity.
Oh yeah.
Even though you're learning almost by definition how to become people other than yourself.
Yeah, it really is authenticity. I think, and again, that goes back to the best performances. It's you find the authenticity in you to match the character and the story. And the further you go away from authenticity, the less interesting or powerful it is. And yeah, I would describe it as a journey in authenticity, getting to your own authenticity. And that's what drew me to it as well, I think. It's just kind of having an obsession with being authentic or true to yourself.
Yeah, because also you are the vessel you have.
Yeah.
You know, so if I'm going to play someone who's really angry, it's going to be if I'm just going to focus on the physical for a second, like obviously there's a lot more in it, but like if I'm going to play someone who's really angry, it's not going to be some kind of Napoleon complex, small guy trying to act larger. It's going to be this bear of a man going to be really big. But then if I play some kind of weakling, it's going to be someone, oh, isn't it interesting? He's physically so tall and whatever, but he looks so small. So that already means I'm going to have to interface with that part of just who I am is always going to have to be part. Like that's, I think, a good example, if I may say so myself.
You are nailing this.
This is all going to be very fucking self-indulgent. So please hammer us for it, Anthony. But I think, you know, you're always going to be you in a way, and like you say, different dials, but it's always going to come true there. So there's a famous actor who said this, and I forgot who it was, but they were like, I'm always just finding who I am in interaction with that character, rather than I'm completely going to be
something else. And then
something else,
like anyone, you know yourself when you meet people, anyone who's not themselves, they're ungrounded or they're untethered or there's something uncomfortable about being around them, you know. And like I think whether it's acting for some people or whatever it is, I do kind of feel like it's all of our duty in the world to find your own authenticity, because everyone is better in themselves when they're authentic. And I don't mean being rude or mean to people, like you still know how to manage it, but yeah, I think lack of connection to ourselves is one of the illnesses in the world.
I think that's a really good point, actually. I hadn't thought about it like that, but if you see someone who's a comedian, like if you know someone in their work and you know them personally and you know them down the pub and you might know them in the football pitch or whatever, and they're very different in all of them, that is like a warning sign. I would go, Whereas we're all slightly different.
Yeah.
Like obviously I swear a lot more on here than I do at the dinner table, for instance, for some strange reason. And my kids then were listening to it and they were like, you do swear a lot. And I was like, fuck. But so we always have to see what's appropriate. But I do think, like people best and find them most authentic when they are quite consistent in all those roles. And it's, it makes sense that you're a little different in your job than you are all that, and that you withhold certain things. But if people are completely different, and that might go the same for acting, I suppose, then that if you're, that kind of comedian, I wonder if you think like people like Daniel Day-Lewis or something who are really good, but I think he does still bring, even though it's quite a metamorphosis, there is probably still a core.
I think there has to be.
Yeah, because it is compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes you hear people say, oh, that actor lost themselves in a role. And some actors do, but I think as an actor or a human, that it's about getting to know yourself so deeply so that you can go in all different directions. Then it's like you have such a strong anchor in who you are so that it's safe to go in all these other wild or extreme directions. Yeah.
It's so interesting that what you said about it's our jobs to become authentic. The thing that keeps coming up for me, and this might be a strange one, but is like martial arts, because I was just watching a wee video of Demetrius Johnson, who's a very small flyweight but world champion, an amazing fighter, and somebody's filming him and he's calling out different fighters. He's calling out different mixed martial artists and boxers. He's like, do Conor McGregor, now do Khabib, and he's like changes his body language in the moment to do each of these guys. And his body is completely different from them. Like he's a very small, agile wrestler build and he can just slip into them like that. And then I was like, that's so interesting because I've trained a few different martial arts, and it is funny. You just kind of put on these different coats.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I can grapple in this one. I can use my feet in this one. I can only use my hands in this one. And they're all you know, but they're all like, they're also very context dependent as well. And then the other thing that reminds me of that is like when you were actually fighting, like Ali and Fraser, he said Joe Fraser was the greatest thing that ever happened to him. He said Ali said Fraser made him the man that there was no other way for him to get to where he was other than by fighting Joe Fraser. Like it cost him so much, but it was the making of him as well. So, because there is that connection between two people. And again, like to come back to the fighting, you've heard fighters talk about how if they've had a few matches with somebody, they're like, I hate that man and I know him better than I know my wife. You know, he's like, we've spent 30, 40 minutes trying to kill each other, you know, and maybe years training for those fights and the kind of connection that builds. So even though it's based on conflict, when you go to that place, there's nothing left but authenticity. You know, I think that's what's compelling about combat sports is because there's no room for grandstanding or anything. You know, it is just, it's so raw. And the more you talk about, and it is a lifestyle as well, and the more you talk about acting, weirdly, that's what's kind of coming up to me. It's like you're cutting away everything that isn't you. Yeah. So even though in one way you're expanding, you're building toolkits, you're like, I want to be able to make sure my voice can do this accent and my body can do this movement and so on. At the end of the day, it's like the choices, maybe the things you don't make, you know, where you just end up with, try to cut it away until it's just. And
I think that like one of the most beautiful things, and you know yourself, is when you just see someone who's being themselves, who's just pure and honest themselves. It like puts a smile on your face often. You're like, oh, that's like a relief that they're just honest and them. And that's why I do see acting has many roles, but one of them is to kind of promote or encourage authenticity and truth to self. I think that in itself is healing. I do think acting is like, I see it as healing art, and acting being one of the arts, as healing for society, in that it's a discovery and exploration of yourself, and then hopefully you bring out more of your authenticity. So that's one factor. Then it's looking at stories or painful situations in our history and giving them attention, and that's already healing. You know, just like acknowledging something, bringing stories to life on screen or on stage, and then it's kind of, I would say, like collectively healing the consciousness around that, as well as the more grounded, realistic looking at it, is that it's just bringing awareness to society, and people can say, "Whoa, that happened. What can we learn from that?" And it's kind of like a service to it, or a ceremony to it, honouring that story that wasn't spoken about or that was just pushed down. It's just like really bringing light to it and honouring it. And then there's the whole idea of it bringing people together, art bringing people together, or in this case acting, you know, going to the cinema or theatre. It's bringing people together physically in that room. I think it's so special when you're just all in this dark room watching a story together. And then, but it's also bringing a wider world community together of everyone who's watching this story or reading this play, and you've been united through this story and understanding the story, having different understandings of this story.
100%. And I think, there's so many things to say about that, because we talk a lot on here about story and how story in a way is such a big part of our lives. But I love as well that we know when it works, you know, we know when it doesn't work, and it's we usually come back to archetypes like that. If the more archetypal the story, the more it will resonate. And I think some of the problems, we've talked about this before, for instance with Joe as well, that some of the more recent stories that have been brought out in film and stuff and on telly have been so surface in, it needs to be this, we need to talk about this, and people just go,
it's so true.
But when it's a deeper story, it can really move people. But then, like you say, it's also showing off. There's so many strands to it. And I actually think the martial artist comparison, first when you started talking, I was like, where's he going with this? And I was like, it works, because it is about being authentic, but it also makes me think about how when people are younger as actors or as fighters, there can be more ego into it, maybe like but then because they really meet people in the arena, be it the stage or the fighting arena, when they go a bit older and some of that ego fades, they will actually say like, that's I've tremendous respect for that person because I've felt them, and I can see that kind of similar as just trying actors kind of like, oh, why are you getting more lines, or why is that kind of really basic ego kind of thing. I want to be in the spotlight, but then later going, oh no, actually,
it's a funny paradoxical industry where it's like so ego based, and so the other end of it is pure authenticity.
100%. And I always thought, because this would be, especially growing up in Holland, but I suppose it'd be similar here, like there would always be a real, what do you call it, like when something is like received truth, or when something is just something that everybody knows in inverted commas, but just something that everyone says, and we'd always be like, oh, you like attention, oh, you like acting, you like attention. And I just bought that. I was just like, well, apparently that's me, big ego, all that. And then the older I got, I just realized like, no, actually, it needs, there is something about the ritual space where it needs the eyeballs, it needs the focus of the audience. It does need that, but it's not about me being seen there. It's more about the story needs to be perceived there, and then you're in that heightened reality of the story. But then when I would finish a show and people would come up afterwards, I would fucking hate it. And it'd be like, oh, hey man, this is that, blah, blah. It'd be nice if it was one person, because you can actually have a chat like, oh, what did you take away, or how did you feel, what did you do? But then when there was a couple of people, and even if they were all being nice and saying, oh, that was great, I'd be like, great, thanks, fuck off, I don't know what to do here. But you do need the attention. So, but it made me realize, it's much more about the ritual space.
Yeah, I think it's like how you can see it, because it could be attention, or it could be this collective witnessing of this story, and back to the community again. Like, everything is more powerful in community. Like we are community, or social beings, and you don't survive if you don't have your community. So I actually used to have no time for art or stories or acting. Like I was so business and entrepreneur obsessed. And when I was younger, I was like, society can get by. Or society, we need business always, but art, do we really need it? And then I obviously saw the light, and I don't know how that happened to me, but maybe that was my journey, is to go be completely blind and then come to this. But then it was the opposite. I realized art is essential for society, or is society the right word?
Or
but
for people.
For people, maybe you could say money is essential for society. I don't know. That's a whole other topic, and I'm getting lost.
But I like that, and I like the idea that maybe probably one of the reasons it's nice to work with you is also because you have that more practical side. Because when there's just people swanning around,
oh my god,
and just being dramatic in, like, I think I've said this to Anthony before, like the most professional actors I've ever worked with, and some of them were like, they do that for a living all the time, they're great, but they would always be great crack. Like they'd be great crack, and it'd just be, they could even say something hilarious to you just before delivering some death monologue, to just go like, oh, did you hear? And there we go, and I love that. I love that playfulness of like just being like good crack on a set or on backstage, and then running on. Whereas the people who are just like, oh my trauma, and like, I'm one of those people too now, don't get me wrong. Like, obviously, we all have that. We all, like, I've looked into, I am performing part of my pain.
Yeah.
Look at my pain. Witness it, please. Because everything wants...
Lend me your ears while I sell you my fears.
Boom. Nailed it.
I like that line.
But it's like... because everything wants to be witnessed. I believe that. Like, everything wants to be witnessed. We even do, or I do this to Anthony sometimes now, before we start the podcast, if we're chatting, I'll go, is there anything we need to witness before we start? Because I actually have this on my mind, and it's going to be just in my mind the whole time, and I'm not going to be open and receptive, because I'm going to be thinking about it. So can I just talk about this for 2 minutes, and then it goes away?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
And I think that's interesting with the acting, that there's the two sides of it too. It's this, I think, like a beautiful, really important, healing part of society. And then I'm like, but it's so much fun and it's playful. And that's what's so important. Like, I often think, I want to tell really important stories. And I'm very into true stories, and especially ones like exposing things that we've thought otherwise, like especially toxic one. If you know Toxic Town, it's out recently. It's just showing about, it's a story in England of chemicals that were in the air, and then all the babies were born deformed at that time, and then them getting justice for. So I really like those kind of stories. It's like letting us know that stuff, and it's really important. But at the same time, I'm like, I do loads of comedies. I might do some superhero film. I probably won't do that, but still, the idea of like, it's entertainment. We need entertainment, and that goes back to me saying why I eventually realized stories and acting and art is essential for us. If we didn't have entertainment, like if you were just working, we're not robots, like we are sentient human beings, and it's connection is essential. So I do think the entertainment and the play side of it is essential as well.
100%. But I would say then as well that if you are, it's nearly hard to watch a story. I'm thinking now, should I say a play or should I say a story in general? But it's nearly hard anyway to go to the theatre and have it just be entertainment. Like, it's always a communal experience. I think it's always deeper entertainment anyway, was the main point I was going to make, than if you're watching Netflix, even though that can be very deep too. But there is such an added thing of being in the room with all those people at that time and having that one iteration of it. It's also why people prefer live gigs. I mean, it's lovely to listen to a beautiful album in the comfort of your own home, but a live gig will always do much more because you're in a communal space and you're hearing that one iteration that is created right there or performed right there anyway.
Yeah, I think the communal aspect is huge, obviously, as I've gone on about, but I do think sometimes somebody might need it just for healing or rest or release or escapism. You know, like it's normal that we actually have shit days regularly and challenges, and you need that song to go cry to or something, or listen to, or you need that mindless TV to watch or something. Like, I'm not saying that's the answer all the time, but sometimes you don't have the tools to deal with it, and that's actually a really helpful tool, is to help you escape or just deal with these emotions right now, because like life is just a process of figuring out how we deal with all these ups and downs, and sometimes that chocolate bar or that TV show or that whatever will help you in that moment until you learn to deal with it. Yeah. I did learn that off it was an acting coach, and it was about that. That was her example, was the chocolate bar. She said, you know, people can reprimand themselves about overeating or eating the chocolate or going off the biscuits. I should have gone out. I shouldn't have eaten it. But say in that moment, if you're really struggling and the only comfort you're going to get is the chocolate, just eat the chocolate and you'll try.
And enjoy it.
Yeah, and the reason you needed it was because you needed soothing.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that's the answer all the time. It's just like, we're learning how to deal with these emotions. If that's the only thing that can help you right now, comfort yourself.
Yeah, and if you don't have access to the deeper soothing that you might get by going to someone or whatever, or, you know, then take that one. Yeah, 100%. And also the demonization of the thing is probably causing a lot more stress than just accepting it.
Joe, it's so interesting, because I do think if you're very, very sad, one way to deal with it is to watch a really sad movie and have a cry. Another way is to watch the stupidest comedy. And I see that with me and Katie. Like, when I'm feeling a bit low, I will watch like comfort shows. Yeah. Whereas when Katie feels low, she will watch like the darkest shit you can imagine. She's like, time for Aronofsky, and I'm like, are you serious?
Oh my god.
You know, and I love Aronofsky, but like, yeah, and they're both valid. That's both really valid, mad. That the thing and the opposite are both equally valid.
And that goes back to just, we're all so different and we all need different things. And I used to be like, I just want to do really serious, important stories. And then it's like, the reason I want to do it is this is for people and to tell stories and to heal people, and a lot of people just need fun.
Can I ask you, Eavan, what makes a good story?
Oh God, no, you can't ask me that. No, I
fuck off away with yourself.
Next. I'm definitely am an authority on that, but for me, authenticity.
Wow.
Authenticity.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And what draws me to a story is empathy. Yeah, even if it's a fun story, like not that there has to be sadness or pain in it, but yeah, it's realness, authenticity and realness. And I don't know, like I wouldn't be good enough about structure, but I've done screenwriting courses and been told what's the right structure. And people who follow structure, they don't have the empathy or the authenticity, and it's crap, and I don't want to watch it. And it's like, this is the formula, twist here, twist here, twist here. It's like, stop with all the twists. I just want to be with 100%. People.
Like, but that's a good point, actually, is that like me and Anthony have been talking about maybe writing something, and I don't think I could write a full story. But what I do think I could do, and I said this to you, and I hope you don't mind me saying that talking about this, but like I just, I could add a few things that I would think are interesting. I could add something that I would like to see, and that could be taken into a story. But I couldn't write a nice overall arc. But I could put a few things in where people go, oh, okay, there's a moment. And that's the nice thing I think about authenticity as well. I always come back to watching the 5th or 6th or whatever Pirates of the Caribbean movie it was. And it's just like...
That's a dark place to be.
It's a fucking dark place to be, matey. But
First one was so good.
Yeah, I know. But it was like... it was actually fine. Like, it isn't horrible. It's fine, but it's not very good. But then there's one, like, Jeffrey Rush plays one of these pirates, and he's a lovely actor, actually. And he, or I think I've seen him in different things where I'm like, oh, he's a really good actor. But so it's this horrible, ridiculous story that they're in. And it turns out he is someone's dad, and she's been looking for him forever. And then there's one moment where he's like, at the very end, he's going to sacrifice himself to save her life. And she figures out in that moment that he is her dad. Like, all of that is still quite silly. The thing he says is ridiculously silly, and still it moved me because I think it was authentic. But what he does is, like, they're hanging off some fucking ledge or whatever, and he kind of lets go and drops down with his sword to kill the... I don't even know exactly what it is, but to kill the monster or whatever. And she looks at him and she goes, "Who am I to you?" And he goes, "Treasure." And he goes, and it's such a corny pirate line, but even thinking about it now, it kind of moves me because it's really genuine the way he plays it. And I always keep thinking of that because I'm looking at that film kind of like fucking zonked out going, what the hell am I watching? What's going on? And then in that moment, I was like, oh, hello.
Oh, yeah.
And that's then the beautiful thing about film and story as well, is that there can be just a bag of shite, but there might be a tiny diamond in it still at the very end, you know.
That's happened to me so many times watching at home, or we're watching it and I'm like, oh, she's kind of getting through it.
Yeah.
And then this bomb out of nowhere, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like laughing, crying because I'm so moved. It was just
silly.
Yeah, and it was just this moment of authenticity and empathy that just gets me every time.
Yeah, I had a similar thing watching, like we were kind of hate watching Wild Mountain Time, which is one of these Irish American stories, and it's just like fucking what's his name? Walken. Like, I'm an Irish actor, and it's just like he doesn't sound Irish at all. But then he plays a scene, and I think he loses the accent completely. But the scene is believable.
Yeah,
you know, and you're like, what is this car crash I'm watching? And it's like, nice. And then we're back to the car crash.
Yeah.
But that's kind of cool still, you know.
Yeah.
And that's awful handy as well if you're going to see your friends play and you're like, oh my God, this isn't great. But then you can say, I really like that.
Yeah, you catch that one and then you remember that and you just keep
I really like that moment,
yeah.
So I'm sure people have done that to me. So.
Can you think of any examples of moments that hit you like that, Eavan?
When it's a big contrast, or just when it's a moment like, well, have you watched Adolescence?
No.
That's the one
I've
that
been
everyone's
warned
talking
about it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I don't know if I need to get on board with this.
That's right. Sorry.
No, you do. It can be all online.
I'm the same. That's why I am literally like, it wasn't a joke. I am on the Moss Boss, and this is not sponsored. But Adele, if you're out there, thank you so much. You are keeping me going.
I was the same on the first episode this season. I nearly think we need to put out a spoiler in front of that because I'm just like, you know. So everyone's coming down with something.
Bart
But don't
and
worry
Anthony,
about that.
And then the guest of Bart's phlegm for episode 1.
I'm thinking, I always think this, like, have your answers ready when people ask, not even for the podcast, but just people regularly ask, so what's your favorite or what stands out, movies and things? Every time I'm asked, I'm like,
Never have it ready, please. I think that's better.
Yeah.
That's more authentic.
Troll, yeah.
Ah,
You got me
fucking
there.
got you with your own.
Yeah. But yeah, adolescence was really powerful in those beautiful moments, and Dope Sick TV series as well, and just Michael Keaton in that, and again just around a powerful topic, I suppose. Call Me by Your Name.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that film? Really beautiful moments. Yeah, just all these moments when you're just seeing someone's pureness.
As we're chatting, I'm realizing that my examples, like I'm thinking, like if I'm sad and I want to feel something, like actually music is always a really, really big part of them. Like I don't know if you watch Dark, the Netflix series, the German series.
Oh, I heard of that. I never watched it though.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm still kind of on the fence because I am bad with that stuff as well. Like I'm like, it looks really beautiful and powerful. I'm sure it's great art.
It's called Dark.
But I'm just like, I'm just like,
it's not an easy watch.
Sometimes that stuff can stay with me for such a fucking long time that I'm like, is it worth it? You know?
Yeah, I do think you need to have like screen health of when you watch 100%. Something.
I just know that and I'm never gonna go, put whatever, keep that away from me, or I'm going to give out about it. But you need to know yourself. Like I'm really bad with horror and stuff, for instance. I just can't. That stuff stays with me. So I just have to go, nope, that's not for me. No, don't even watch that trailer, because a part of you is also then interested.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
So, did you, I wanted to ask you this. Did you ever see the Jim Carrey in The Man on the Moon?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Because I know people have found very different opinions.
So that's the Andy Kaufman biopic where he, is it?
Yeah, where he basically says, anyway, that he channels Andy Kaufman and he just is him on set the whole time. And the family come in and they're like, he's here. And then he's the alter, and then he plays the alter ego as well, who's, I forget the name. Andy Kaufman had like a weird, like kind of really rude alter ego as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. It was so long ago now. But yeah, I know it is a topic of when is someone being authentic and connected to the energy of that character or person, and when are they just being a dickhead and like rude and not nice at all. So I know there was loads of chat about that.
Well, I heard Martin Freeman talking on a podcast, and he was like, that's just so fucking unprofessional and ridiculous, and you can't do that to the rest of the staff and stuff. And I was like, he's probably right, but I do believe the channeling of it. It looked very genuine to me. Like, it must have been fair tricky for the people on set, so I get that as well. But he was like really angry about it, Martin Freeman was, and I was a bit like, yeah, you just don't do that.
Yeah.
You would never do that. Like, he's an amazing actor, but you'd never do that version. You're more of playing the grounded, bit curmudgeonly kind of...
Everyman.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you're so annoyed about that, and I don't mean that in a bitchy way, but... because I get really annoyed at stuff, and then I go, oh yeah, actually I want a bit of that stuff, you know. And I was nearly like, would he not want to be able to do that? Because it seemed genuine to me. And the fact that his fucking Andy Kaufman's family come over and they go, we actually get to connect with part of Andy again. Like, yeah, that must have been a tricky shoot for everyone. Yeah. But it felt really genuine to me. Yeah.
And I do think with acting, or like a lot of times people feel the essence of somebody has come through, and when you're in this whole telling a story, it's likely that could happen.
I think so.
Yeah. So I wouldn't discredit and discount it. I think it goes into different topics of, one, there's the whole spiritual side of it.
Yeah.
Energetics, was Andy there? Was he channeling him? And then I think why, say, Martin Freeman might be annoyed is just the professionalism and respect for other people.
And that is a reasonable point as well.
Yeah, you wonder, maybe there's not some people might say there isn't the professional acting world or a working environment isn't the place to be bringing that whole energy in. I heard one actor who, it's Andrew Garfield, and he did something, he says he does a practice which I loved, was that he signs in and out to his character every night or every day on set. So it's like, so say if he was channeling an energy, at least he channels him, brings him in, and then closes it at the end of the day, and then you're like respectful and nice to people again.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I would find it very hard to do that channeling thing. Yeah. And then just be like that all the time. Just be like, you're just gonna have to witness this. But I've some respect for the like going like full, like where you're just basically making the end result the main thing, and not how people feel in the meantime.
The process,
But on the other hand, then we know how important that is, for instance, with stuff around intimacy and stuff, to be professional. So I suppose it would have to be the same way with emotional stuff.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm actually really delighted in a way that there's more of that. Now I make it sound like if I can do this all the time. I haven't actually, since moving to Clare, I've done very little acting, but like it is nice that now there is people know that they need to do a bit of intimacy coaching. I do think that's good, because I've had it where you're just and never like it's mostly just been kissing and that kind of stuff, but you're like really trying hard to be a good person and be nice to someone, but then also trying to be in it, you know, and it's just like, it's great if a director or someone takes responsibility for that and goes, hey, we're going to go into a little space now because this is a bit of a thing and I want everyone to be okay, and you're going to do exactly this. It's not going to be like, well, Bart, whatever you feel like is appropriate here. You know, that's not the probably... I mean, I think it's nice when there can be improvisation, but that's probably not the place for it.
The weird analogy that's coming through to me is a referee.
Yeah.
Like, you want like people to be able to give everything, but also you don't want things to get out of hand. You know? And when you're trying to self-regulate or something, or if there's a power imbalance, it blows my mind that intimacy coaches or coordinators were not a thing for so long. Like, there must have been some horrendous, implications there.
Yeah, and like what it's made me always do is just be like super checking in and be like, is this okay? Are you okay? Is everything okay? But it actually made it shit for me, because you're not like that. You're not really, whereas normally you just be like focusing on it. It's the same as like if you have to do something violent on stage or something, you want to make sure like, is that okay? Are you going to be... Are you not scared of falling?
We have a local amateur doing the fireworks. It should be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and obviously that's true as well. Like local things, it's going to be a limited budget, but people can still take a bit of responsibility for that. Yeah. So look, when I think about that, then I do kind of think, so emotionally that should be the same. But then,
because anger is a powerful energy, and it can be really uncomfortable to be on the other end of that if someone has gone into the space of their own therapy rather than being in a safe space. Like, there's been times where I've been in classes, and you can just feel when an actor is up there and it's just gone too personal, and you need to bring yourself into it, but it's really fun. I always find it hard to articulate or explain why, but you can just see something like this has gone into a space where you haven't dealt with yet, and now it's coming up here in front of everyone, and we're not in therapy here. That you should do it somewhere else before you bring it up here.
That really made me think of I used to listen to Mark Maron, an American podcaster and comedian, who I've actually gone off a little bit, but he did a show about his first or second divorce, and the reviews were like, it's great. He hasn't processed any of it. He's just in it. It just made me think of that, where it's just like it's so uncomfortable. It's just like roaring on stage, you know. And I know John Cleese had a thing like that as well, where he was like the alimony tour or something, and it's like it didn't look funny. I didn't go, but I saw clips of it, and it didn't look funny because it was just like a very angry man.
Cleese has always been like that. Like even if you watch Life of Brian, Cleese hates the left. It's so weird to watch a Monty Python film from the 70s, is it Life of Brian? And he's playing like this leader of like an anarchist, you know, like, and he hates them. You can see it. Like there's a bitterness to Cleese's humor, which I think was always very funny when it was self-directed. Like Basil Fawlty is bitter, but deserves to be a bitter old man. Like you're laughing at Basil Fawlty. So when it's but when you're like, I don't know, he has some funnier thoughts and things, and people are like, oh, I can't believe Cleese has turned out like this, and I'm like, no, he was always like this. We were just okay with it for a long time.
Well, and I don't think, because is it the People's Front of Judea and that kind of stuff? I do find that very funny. I don't like. I do know what you mean. There is a bitterness, but I don't think it spoils it in that case.
No, I wouldn't say it spoils it, but I'm like, it's definitely there. Like, because you look at the other Pythons, and I don't think they have that.
No, but that's great as well. Then when you have that in the mix, because I think homogeneity of outlook is also. But I do know what you mean, and it's definitely come out when he was dealing with personal bits.
Oh god, yeah. So that is somebody I think who's probably not processing his own stuff before he starts sharing it. And I think it was Matthew McConaughey said that there's a difference between self-expression and art. Yeah. You know, Eavan, we're almost an hour in, and I know I asked you to prepare a topic, and we launched into it. Are we in the ballpark of what you wanted to talk about? Do you want to is there a big red lever you want to pull
like
so that we can
diversion quick? I expected to talk about all that stuff, and we can go into it in other ways as well. But I'm also interested. At the moment, it's kind of my new real passion, I suppose, is just the idea of slow living.
Oh, yes.
That was another topic that we can go that direction as well if you want, or we can go back.
Well, I tell you what might be a nice overlap there is something you were saying, and it's actually been something that's coming up for me as well, where this is an interesting... myself and Katie went to a yoga class over in the Omega Institute in New York, run by a Spanish woman called Puy Navarro, who's actually also an actress.
Oh, yeah.
And she's... she does like performances of Ulysses for Bloomsday. She comes to Ireland for that stuff. So she's amazing. And she was an amazing yoga teacher. And she used to have this lovely line that yoga is not about the shape of your body, it's about the shape of your life.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to realize that there's certain professions and vocations or whatever you want to call them where it's not just enough to do a 9 to 5. You know, so I started in a very practical way. I noticed when I was very busy in my clinic, I was like, oh, I can't drink the night before. It's just, so I was like, okay, so, and then you're like, actually, if I want to be really good, I need to sleep well the night before. And that means I need to eat earlier and I need to eat better. And all of a sudden you're starting to realize that your job is not your job. It doesn't start and end when you go to work. And, my sister is a dancer, and she studied this, and dancers will train for 20 hours a week to perform for 2 or 3, and I think there might be something like that with the acting as well.
Completely, yeah.
And then you're like, okay, I don't have a job where I can check in and check out and grab a paycheck. So you then need a lifestyle to support that. And a big part of that is space, isn't it? You're like, okay, I wasn't expecting this, but this has come up today. And now I actually need to give 3 hours to my body or to journaling or to something. And then we live in a society that does not make that very easy.
Oh, yeah. My head is exploding with things to talk about there. I was thinking there when you said, lifestyle. I do. And that goes back to the acting, as I said, as a practice. But I see your lifestyle... You can see it as a practice as well, how you live. And I just thought lifestyle as medicine, in that the way you go through your life can be the healing thing, instead of us always thinking, how do I fix my body with the food I eat or the way I exercise? I think that's so one-dimensional, and it's probably one of the problems why a lot of people aren't healing, is because they keep just thinking about these physical things, but it's about so much more like that, like the space, your environments, the invisible toxins, which is a whole other thing, but just the pace of your life. And we keep being so focused on this transaction of what you put into your body and how you exercise your body, but there's so much more around that. And sorry, that's a bit off point there, but I'm sure we'll link back around. But back to that lifestyle and how you create, so like that 9 to 5, like I realized, like 9 to 5 cannot work for me. I tried it so often, and it doesn't work for my blueprint, let's say. And I think it's really important for everyone to figure out what your blueprint is, because if you're in the wrong lifestyle for your energy type or who you are, it will build up stress or build up anxiety or just more resistance, and it's not going to flow. So I think, again, like I said, it's kind of your duty to know who you are. It's your duty to know how, duty is a very strong word, but anyway, to know how you operate and to know what lifestyle is best for you, because by living your best lifestyle, then you'll be the best person you are, and you'll be nicer to be around, and you'll show up better for everyone else. And, you know, there is that thing people speak about of, like, it's a blurry line of self-care and selfish. But I think people really need to understand that the importance of self-care, because the better you look after yourself, the better you show up for other people, and the better you are for other people. And then it's not selfish. I know it can go into selfish territory in certain iterations, but just like nourishing your own energy and nourishing your lifestyle, then you'll nourish the people around you. God, I'll go in so
100%. No, don't be. It's funny though, because you were actually making a really salient point, but what I said to myself is, if he leaves the room, maybe we should just like fucking act some shit out, try and start some beef, so that he's like, what the fuck is going on here?
What did I miss?
But that's probably very bad. Okay, maybe not. But I think but if you do feel an urge to just start fucking shouting at me in a moment, do, and I will. We will respond in an open way. Yeah, showing off. That's horrible. I didn't want that, but more like communal. We can together operate in that different space. No, but I think a lot about. I think that's 100% right. It's funny as well that we always need to kind of make that self-care okay by going, we can show up for other people. Like, and I think it's 100%. So I think it's 100% true, and it's right. But it's funny that we
have to justify
it nearly with that. Like, not that I feel that you were particularly justifying it, but it is.
Yeah, I think it's because of my conditioning that I feel like I have to make sure to say it's okay to do self-care.
All of us. Yeah. Because, like, I'm not doing it for me. Like, I'm going to be better for me, but I'm also doing it for you. And so we're still doing it for
other people.
For the other person. Like, but
I know, I think there's such a fear to look after yourself in this world. And, like, also that our attention has become so on the external of the effect you're having on people or on the world around you. And I also recently just have noticed our obsession with productivity. And I was totally guilty of it. I was passionate productivity, obsessive. Like, I had lists and systems and everything. How could you be the most productive? You know, I wasn't into acting before. It's all about entrepreneurship and creating the best systems. And now as the journey has gone on, I'm like, oh my God, productivity is why we're all a mess. We're just obsessed with getting the most out of everything, like the most out of your land in a way that people are going so far into things being productive that they're losing sight of what it's depleting and what you're losing. So even with ourselves being hyper productive, look how much you're destroying your life. That's so dramatic.
No, but it's a lovely analogy, because I think the thing about productivity, you were talking about lists, you were talking about yields, like crop yields. Productivity is defined by the benchmarks. Right. And then whoever controls the benchmarks controls product, you know, whether or not you're productive and whether or not you are like a valid member of society. And like one very, you know, easy one is money, right? So the more money you have, the more productive you are, you know, and that's obviously not true. You know? Yeah.
And this over focus on your money and your identity. Like, I really struggled when I was becoming an actor or when I went off the original career path and was in this phase of not having any any label to say like, oh, I'm this person in this company, or I was too early on in my acting career to have confidence to say I'm an actor.
Yeah.
So I had this whole phase of just realizing that all my worth was tied up with my identity and what I contribute to society on a CV level, and I just felt so like worthless, and I was really frustrated that my friends had all their titles and I was still like titleless.
Yeah.
And then I felt valueless and worthless. And this journey has been a real realization of how we've got so skewed. I know it's the kind of usual cliched stuff, but we've lost the point of things and it's the quality of life and our experiences and our connections, not the productivity and our titles.
Well, and I think we've lost it and we're refinding it, and that is happening. But I think that's a very good point, and I like the I could kind of see you when you said it, like, oh, I need to be like titles. I was thinking of like a queen or something, I'm the Duchess of North Clare or something like that.
Because I suppose it is a
marketing
human
manager,
thing as well, and that we can pitch ourselves when we know what you are. Like I noticed when I was in college, when you're in college, you say you're a student. But my last year of college, I started working with this productivity company. It was like, it was more just a consultant, but she went in to make your company more productive, but more happy, and just like communication systems. Yeah. Anyway, my point is that when I introduced myself as, hi, I'm Eavan, I'm a student, and I do this work on the side, I got a different response to, I work with this company and I'm still studying as well. So when I define myself as a student versus someone who's working, people knew how to pitch themselves to me or how they could relate themselves to me. The hierarchy was clear then. So I think saying what you do is a safety net. So it's like, this is me, this is my label. You can judge me or react to me around that before you get to know me or feel who I am.
Yeah, I think it makes people a bit freaked out if you're like, what are you up to? I do a bunch of different things. I do X and Y and Z and data, and I'm working on this, and people kind of look at you like, where do I put you? What box do I put you in? And it can just be like, can't you just be an accountant? Yeah.
Well, there's a few things to that, because on the one hand, that's again a lovely thing I found with acting, is that I hardly ever knew what people did outside of that. So you really get to know the person first. It's like, oh no, it's just that person who's great to act with, and that's their name, and this is the joke we make. And I really had people where I worked with them for 3 years on something or whatever, and I wouldn't have a fucking clue what they did outside that. Now, the other thing with that though is it can be awful handy if you name yourself as a thing that people know to find you as that thing. That is the upside of it, I would say. Like when I was a translator, I would go, I'm a translator, and everyone would go, we know exactly what that is. Bart, here's the text. And I was like, great, make some money, And now it's a bit more vague, but also I do try to put a bit more like, well, I'm a musician, or something like that. But I know what you mean, like
podcaster,
and an actor, and a handsome.
The list goes on.
Anyway, but in a way, you'd want to leave that off, but it can also be handy.
It's obviously helpful, and it does say a lot about people, but it's just that I think it's become heavily focused on that, and then this whole productivity thing and fast pace of living. It's a quick way to know someone. What are you? Oh, you're an accountant. Oh, you're translator. Yeah. So it kind of facilitates this idea of pace, of everything going faster, because I need to spend more time with you to know you more.
You actually.
Yeah, but if you just tell me I'm a translator, it's like, okay, well, skip all that. He's a translator. Mm-hmm. That's it.
That's a bit boring. Yeah.
It's also such a use value label.
Yeah.
Like if you said, for example, I'm a Capricorn, that is something actually intrinsic to you, right?
Yeah.
But you say I'm a translator, it's like, here's my use value.
Yeah.
It's so...
that's funny.
Not completely, but much more so. It's a funny one.
Well, and it kind of characterizes as well. Like if someone goes, I'm an accountant, I go, okay, this is probably someone who's detail oriented and who I shouldn't maybe talk about the fairies.
Yeah, another, another fucking Virgo. I'm a Virgo, I'm allowed to say it. But
what you always say, the butt of astrology.
Oh God, it's ridiculous. We're put upon. I think, and we're only trying to be of service.
It's our obsession as well, of service.
But that's true, actually. Yeah, Virgo, very Virgoan.
I'm very sorry for your loss.
I'm a proud Virgo.
I am fucking joking, Eavan.
There we go.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll replay that moment over and over.
It'll be a fucking gif.
What we could have done better.
The Virgo's being
unite.
delighted with himself while I look on in disgust.
Another aspect of productivity that I really struggle with, and it was so fucking validating for me to hear. We had Ronan O'Snuddy in a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about it. So Ronan is a very physical, active man, right? And he was talking about how when he's writing, sometimes he needs to just like chill out for a few hours and do nothing and let things stew, and that there is a part of him that is chomping at the bit, that is like, I'm sat here doing nothing, and I'm not being productive. I mean, you are being productive. If you're working on a poem and you have to sit and think about a line for 4 hours, you are actually being productive because you're getting closer to the end of that project. But in the moment, you're just sat there doing nothing. And it's so at odds with the idea of what productivity is. And particularly if you're somebody that like takes pride in your work, as a lot of people do. I think particularly a lot of men, but I'd be open to being corrected on that. But like, that's something I really find. Like that if I'm working on something, I realized a while ago that it's no good for me to say I'm going to sit down and give the laptop 3 hours. Like, I'm actually better off reading a book or going for a walk or stretching or just like chilling out. And then when I feel it, I'm like, now I can do an hour of work and be super productive. I will get more done in that hour when I do it at the right time and when I'm well rested, and when I can focus and have nothing else on my mind, than if I just tether myself to the laptop for 3 hours. And I felt really bad about that for a long time. And I still struggle with that. And other stuff comes through as well, like just being there for people. Like, I've had situations with people that are close to me where they needed support that could only be given through time. Like, I was like, oh, I can actually take 4 hours now. Yeah. The stuff I have is flexible enough that I'm like, otherwise, okay, I could have gone to the office and made $1,000 and then lent them some money. That's another way I could have supported it, but in the moment, that's not what they needed. And anytime that's come up, I felt very, very privileged that I'm able to do that. And this is coming back to being of surface and justifying it by being able to help out other people. But it's true. And I think stuff like that is incalculably valuable. And no wonder so many of us feel so sad and disconnected, because we're not machines. We do have like random Wednesday afternoons where we just like, the world is just too fucking much for me.
Yeah, and it just reminds me of women have cycles, and so we have the seasons within the month, and it's becoming easier. Well, I don't know how much easier, but anyway, I'm around more people now who acknowledge their cycles and acknowledge their winter time. So it's just, I was thinking that there when you're saying that you don't feel bad on the Wednesday or whatever day where you're on your period, because you know you have to rest. And changing that again, it's linked to that idea. We need to be productive all the time, but when we start to remember that we all have cycles, like the world seasons, they exist. And we've just forgotten in particular about winter. That we need, like, everyone is on summer from 9 to 10, like 9 in the morning, 8 in the morning to 11 at night. And that male, female, that we should all, like the world, we need to be more in rhythm with the earth of having the Wednesday, whatever afternoon where it's slow and I don't have to feel bad about not doing stuff. And I do think this idea of rest, we need to get better with rest. And like you're saying, Ronan O'Snuddy was saying there, feeling guilty of, you're like, I should be creating this song or this poem. But it has a process and a cycle. And if you're trying to blast it out, like in summer all the time, like the flowers trying to flower all the time. They can't flower properly then. They need to go down and rest. And then again, it's back to knowing yourself and know how you work. There'll be some people where it works just to blast out these hours when they say, I'm going to sit down now and do it. Other people, it won't work. And then if you do push through that, it's not worth it. You won't flower properly then. So knowing your rhythms and your cycles, I think taking time to know that is so invaluable. Like it might be years, months that you figure it out, but when you do, then you know that I don't need to push myself when I feel like I just need to rest, because I'll go through it and then I'll produce something really good when the time's right. But rest, I think, is such a big thing that we don't have a relationship, or have a complicated relationship with.
It's very tricky, and you have to. I was doing this container last winter with now Graham and Michaela of Rooted Feminine Wellness, and Michaela had a whole part of that container which was about rest, and oh my god, it's uncomfortable. And at some point Niall went to me and he said, yeah, homework, lay down in your bed for 20 minutes a day and do fuck all. And I found it super uncomfortable. But it's another thing where if you do bring awareness to it and you lie there and you go and you just feel that discomfort, then it will open up a little bit. But we've just been, it's been horsed into us, like generationally and
particularly in the modern time with stimulation, like we're just nobody's taking a break from stimulation, and some people are like, okay, I'm going to rest, and they take out their phone. That's
and it's
still input and stimulation.
Well, there's a way of looking at an illness by looking at what the treatment is, and then by looking at the treatment you can work backwards to find out how the person is defining the illness. And in ancient times, one of the things the working class would consume would be beer, right? Mead. Like people were kind of a bit buzzed all the time. Nowadays, the vast majority of people are on caffeine.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if caffeine disappeared tomorrow? I think caffeine is the drug of Western society. More so than alcohol, more so than anything. I think it's actually tipped over to caffeine. Imagine it disappeared tomorrow. What would happen to Western society? So what does that tell us? That tells us it's compensating for something. And we're fucking tired. Like we are tired. That's why we all need so much goddamn caffeine. You know?
And we keep trying to push ourselves into this summer season again, and just to keep it up, like fertilizing ourselves with.
And it needs big changes as well to really make, like, I like what you said about the blueprint, and I think it's right. Like, I'm a bit of a freelance hawk. I'm all on like a war hawk, but on freelancing. I'm like, everyone should be a freelancer, which 100% isn't true. Like for a lot of people that wouldn't be appropriate, but I do always feel if someone has the opportunity and the inclination, I'm like, would you ever go freelance? Because that is a big shift, and it's hard to get out of the 9 to 5. But I've been a freelancer now for 8 years, and it's so good for me. And still, I'm still fucking focused on being productive, and it's still not perfect, and I'm horsing into the caffeine, as people will have seen on this plenty of time. But at least it allows for me, it allows for adventure. It should allow for more rest. That I haven't really gotten there yet, but I really like that I don't know what the day holds. That's a really big thing for me, where I'm like you said, someone will ring me and they're like, Bart, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, that sounds like great fun. Can you help me get we need to move the cows. Grand, that's my day sorted. Am I going to play to Cliffs today? I might actually just meet someone for coffee. But also, am I going to record something today? Am I going to write something today? No, it doesn't feel like it today, and that's fine, and I'm going to do something else. Oh, there's something like this. I just love the idea of, like, in terms of work, where you're like, if you can write me an invoice, I can work for you. I love that. I love that it's just like, doesn't matter what the fuck you want me to do. If you can write me an invoice and I can do the thing you want me to do, then that's great. And I think that's such a lovely feeling, because I love that mixed and that adventure. But it definitely... you have to let go of the direct output thing. And also, I think you spoke to this beautifully before, that there is something about the void. There is something about, like, I know I am going to, in the near future, produce a number of things. I know you are going to produce a number of things. I can't speak to Eavan, but it's probably similar.
You can feel it simmering.
Yeah, you can feel it simmering.
I hope so.
But you have to accept the simmering, and you have to accept the fact that it's not there yet, and then it'll happen, and you might even go, geez, why didn't I do that before? Well, because you couldn't do it before.
There was a process.
There's a whole process, and we always forget. It's the same like when you go to a specific type of therapy or something, and someone it really clicks and it really helps, and you're like, the fuck, why didn't I do this before? It's like, well, you literally could not have.
Yeah.
It's this version of you that, or in most cases, I'm sure there's some exceptions to that, but I really love freeing. And when I go to people and I go, oh, can you do a gig on Tuesday at 3? And they're like, no, I'm always 9 to 5. And I'm like, yeah, that's really shit for you. Even though for a lot of people it might not be shit. I know that. And this is always the issue as well when you speak authentically, hopefully, to your experience of reality. It's only my experience of reality. Like, it's always someone else is going to have a different experience. See, there she is, the dark feminine, as I described her.
You a bit there.
And it's just that knife in the dark, and I'm completely done.
No, but it's true. It's like real acknowledging that your experience is just your experience, and showing people that it could work for them, and also that, because people can get stuck in their patterns or their structure and not realize that another one might work, or
it might. And like you said to me recently, the ravens of wisdom might come feed you in the desert. Like there is a real strange energetic thing. Now this is quite woo-woo, bring out the bell, but like you don't have to get up, don't bring that. He wasn't going to. But there is a real thing if you go, no, actually I believe this is the right path and I can't see how it's working out right now. Something will come to feed you. But that's very scary.
Yeah. And again, it's back to that kind of the productivity thing. Like, what can I do to make this happen? Mm-hmm. I was definitely so guilty of that, and kind of in a process now of, I've done enough. I actually think you also, again, knowing yourself, because some people, their disposition might be they do need to have more structure, get out and do more, and others don't, and you need to balance up what actions you match your blueprint.
You absolutely, like you find, I was talking to somebody and they were like, what can I do, what can I do? I actually did a tarot reading for them. I was like, you need to stop doing, you need to absolutely stop, and the cards were just like, there is a grasping to that, there is a control, right, and actually if you're in control, everything that happens to you, not everything, but the vast majority of things you will allow in will be things that are smaller than you, because they are things you can control. Right, okay. I will talk to that person, I will get this gig and I will make this thing. But then if you surrender and if you go into the void, stuff can enter that is much bigger than you, but it might not. Like, that's the
scary thing.
That's the really scary thing. And this idea of like the ravens in the desert, that like, I think there is stuff that can only enter into your life when you take a huge gamble. And like when your back is absolutely against the wall.
But do you think it's a guarantee that something good will come in, or?
So we were talking about benchmarks. Like, what's a benchmark for success? Right. Let's say you make an album and you're like, okay, success would be it goes platinum. But maybe you make the album and it gets absolutely slated. And you're like, take a break from music and you go backpacking in India. And you're like, oh, here's an ashram. Oh my God, yoga is what my body always needed, Which, they're both successes.
I think you're right. I think that it's I would say it's nearly, because I'm not 100% sure. And also I'm a bit afraid that life might go, oh, is that what you think? Well, there you go. Because there's I've really noticed that happening sometimes. But I think that nearly always something will actually fill that void. And if you are aiming at kind of the right things or the most authentic and truthful things, that will happen and it will be good. But like you say, it could be first something needs to break or something else needs to happen, or the thing that needs to happen before the other thing. Like, how often has something really dark happened in your life, but something beautiful has sprung from it? That I think that happens a lot. But it's hard. Like, even this, like January, I was in Holland and talking to a great mentor of mine, and I was telling him about my plans for music and things here in Clare, and he was like, I think that's all going to work out. I think you don't need to do anything to make that happen. And I was like, yeah, okay, so what do I do? You know, it's like, it's just like, fuck, does that work? You know,
it's like, great,
but
let me
it's
just
true
write down what I have to do after that.
But so far, the things that have happened that have felt really meaningful and like progress have all come like flukes. They haven't been because I went out to do a big thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, you're 100% right.
I guess what the big question is the void really the void? Like, if you do leave space, is it actually empty space?
Is it empty?
Or is it full of potential and you're just like allowing for space for something else?
But at least there's space for
manifest.
something else, exactly.
Because like, if there is no space, then it's, you know that nothing new is going to enter.
And you're going to be that short-term productivity of like, oh, I need to get the paycheck, but then you don't allow yourself time for the big upgrade. That might even if we're just talking about paychecks, obviously there's more important things, but like if we're just talking about paychecks, the biggest one will come probably from something completely different and a complete reinvention of yourself or upgrade of yourself. But we feel like we need to, and that graspy thing, what you said there, it also made me think about sometimes you see people who really want to be in a relationship with someone, like a romantic relationship, and they get really graspy. And you just feel like, this is not going to work. I saw it with a friend of mine recently where they were always looking for it, never worked out. And then it worked out the moment they started actually saying no to certain things and setting some proper boundaries for themselves. And then suddenly it comes in. And I've seen that quite often where people actually stop looking. And also like me and Eavan, my wife, like we met each other when we were both like completely happy to be single. Like we don't need anything. I think that's such a different mindset, and I always wonder that as well about online dating apps and stuff. When you're going on somewhere with that express purpose, does it not, like, I know it can work beautifully for people. Yeah, but you didn't go with the express purpose. But I know people who have, and it's also worked out. But there can be a grasping energy. Now, your story definitely not, because we've all seen the picture, or I've seen the picture anyway that you put up on Tinder. So that's not a slight at Anthony.
Well, you've put it up now, so I'm going to need to find it. I'll show you afterwards, Eavan.
Yeah, we're going to have to put it on the socials.
Actually will now.
Everyone needs to see.
This was actually not with. Was it still there when I? Anyway, I was over in London studying, and this was a long time ago, and I was on the apps, I was on Tinder, and like a few weeks went by and I didn't get a single match. You know, and you're like, okay, bit of a dry spell, and then another week, and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with this? Is
the algorithm is broken or something?
But I'm like,
or I'm broken.
Yeah, more likely I'm broken.
Yeah.
And it just kept going, and eventually I was like, what is this? So I started digging into my app. And what I found was that I had changed my profile photo while drunk to something absolutely horrible and just completely forgot about it. And I was just there. I was literally the architect of my own destruction. And,
which was a great relief,
and I'm just like, you know, when other people get drunk, they play jokes on other people. I'm like, I really feel like fucking with sober Anthony right now. Let's really destroy a bit of his self-esteem.
Let's cock block myself. So I didn't mean to bring it up, brother, but as it has happened naturally, I do think it would be great to have.
Oh my God, stop.
That'll do it.
I didn't even expect it to be that bad.
Thank you. So now it definitely needs to go on the socials.
I'm sorry about that, brother. That wasn't premeditated.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Bart. I'll never
live that one down.
You successfully deterred anyone there.
I did. But it's so, the control thing is so funny. Oh God, where was I going with that? Did I write something? Please tell me I write something. Nope. I have nothing to say.
Fuck it.
Yeah. There was something that was coming up. Yeah, but Ravens in the Desert. That was from John Moriarty. So I was listening to Mancon's Bog Shaman thing about him, and Moriarty walked out of. He was a professor of English literature in Canada, And he just literally walked away from it all, literally walked out penniless into the wilderness without a place to stay and with no money in his pocket. And he compared himself to Elijah, the prophet Elijah, wandering in the desert, and God sent ravens to feed him because Elijah was doing God's work. Elijah was a prophet in a land where it was not the dominant religion. So because he was doing God's work, God sent ravens. And I love that God sent ravens, like not doves, not peaceful animals, but these wise, wily birds. And for me, that means that, like, if you are going to go out into the desert, you need to be wise and wily. You know, you need to follow the ravens. But I think it comes back to authenticity again as well. I think the ravens will come if you're being authentic. But if you're just being like, I'm going to quit my job and just wait for someone to take care of me.
And like it's a trend now to break free from the corporate 9 to 5 or whatever. And just, do think a lot of people follow healthy or spiritual trends that aren't authentic to them or what they need.
Mm-hmm. And then you get the thing where just the face is swapped, but it's still the same machine. Like I was talking to a friend about that yesterday, that so often people will go like, oh, we really didn't like how dogmatic religion got. So we'll get into dogmatic scientism, for instance, and go, it's completely different. It's not religion anymore. You're like, yeah, but you're still doing the same thing. And I think
it's not that's
no, exactly. But I mean at least the surface level. And it's similar with that. Like, no, I'm free of the man, but also, you know, I'm now going to sell this product or whatever. Yeah.
Just going in a different form, different costume.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, on Weshtern Philosophy, we try to just fucking talk to ravens.
Yeah, be as unproductive as possible.
Be as unproductive as possible, but with very intelligent and talented and stylish guests.
So and a rigorous weekly release schedule, but...
Oh no, you're making my whole... Oh no, everything is going to topple now. Oh, yeah, will we leave it at chaos and just despair? Is that a nice place to leave it?
That would be a lovely place to leave Eavan amidst chaos and despair.
Is there anything? Can you save us, maybe?
Go outside, put your feet on the ground, and let it all disperse.
Yes.
Oh, thank God, that's a good idea. Yeah, go outside into the spring sunshine, and we'll be okay.
I know it is such a cliched thing, though. Talking about the cliched wellness trends of just go outside, be in nature, go to do the garden. It's like yeah, but when you get behind that, you're like, really is what you need to do. Just get back into the rhythms of nature, because we're like all on the frequency of coffee and phones. So there's your advice for you now, Bart.
Love that. Love that. Thank you, Eavan. This has been Weshtern Philosophy. Follow us on all the socials at Weshtern Philosophy Pod. If you want to support the podcast, you can join our Patreon to help the show grow, or make a one-off donation via the Ko-fi link in the episode description. We'll be back next week with more chats and another topic. Slán.